Goodbye, Miss Patterson, by Phyllis McLennan. Miss Agnes Patterson's fifth grade class sat rigid under the gorgon eye of their teacher, waiting to be programmed into the next item on their tightly organized schedule. Motionless, backs straight, hands neatly folded on their desks, faces careful masks of respectful submission, they seemed unaware that it was the last day before Easter vacation, with school almost out and spring waiting for them beyond the open windows. The trees now lightly smudged with pink, the call of carefree birds, the rich warm smell of the moist earth, and new growing things seemed to hold no charm for them. Not one so much as glanced outside. Apart from discipline, there was something on the window-sill that they could not bear to look at. An empty hamster cage. The cage awaited no new occupant. It was simply there to remind them of their failure in their nature study project, a frippery of modern education that Miss Patterson had never quite approved of. The committee appointed to care for the little beast had forgotten to take it home with them over the Christmas vacation, and their teacher, seeing in this oversight a heaven-sent opportunity for a stern lesson on responsibility, had left the animal to the fate its thoughtless guardians had abandoned it to. When they came back after their holiday, they found it dead, lying on its back, eyes closed, mouth open, stiff and cold. Miss Patterson's vivid description of the torments the hamster must have suffered as it starved and thirsted to death had left most of the children in hysterical tears. One thing was sure. None of them would turn his or her eyes in the direction of that reproaching cage, no matter what marvelous events might transpire beyond the window. They sat, subdued, fully under control. When their teacher cracked the whip, they would jump. All except Corina. Defiant little witch, Corina. She sat in the corner like a cat wandered in on a whim, watching what went on with a cat's inscrutable smouldering stare, or turning her attention inward to mysterious thoughts of her own. She had a reputation as a troublemaker. She had been transferred from room to room all year, as teacher after teacher refused to cope with her. Her parents had been called, but they refused to discuss the problem like good parents. They said that their daughter went to school because the law required it, and the law made her behave if it could. It was no concern of theirs. She had been in Miss Patterson's class for little more than a week, and though she had done nothing overt, in her mere presence the group was beginning to disintegrate. The children were restless, uneasy, like sheep who scent the wolf. Her contempt for the activities in which they spent their days was obvious. She refused to answer questions when called on, did no homework, turned in blank papers, and with her example before them, the others were beginning, ever so slightly, to get out of hand. Miss Patterson was not disturbed. She had been dealing with troublemakers for 20 years, and she knew how to break them. Her methods were not subtle, but they were effective, and Corina had put her most effective weapon to her hand by turning in an arithmetic test with nothing on it but her name. Miss Patterson returned the tests and addressed her pupils in a voice like honey on a razor's edge.
Elephants have giant brains, and so all those who had perfect papers are elephants. Stand up, elephants, so we can see you. My, we have a lot of elephants, haven't we? Mice have little brains and don't pay attention, and so they make mistakes, but they can squeeze by. Stand up, mice. Fleas are little tiny parasites with no brains at all. They're really stupid. We don't have any fleas in our class, do we? Oh, we do have one. Corina didn't get one single answer on this test. She couldn't answer any of the questions. Stand up, Corina. You must be a very tiny flea indeed.
She smiled triumphantly and looked to see Corina crushed.
If I'm a flea, you're an old bat!
It was unthinkable that such impertinence could be. Stunned, helplessly conscious of her mouth gone slack, her burning face, Miss Patterson sat paralyzed, transfixed by Corina's eyes, fierce and yellow and soulless as a hawk's. She knew. How could she not have known before? How could she not have seen what she now saw so clearly? This was no child like other children.
You are a bat!
Corina repeated ominously, her witch's eyes grown huge and luminous. She glided forward, reached the desk, and slid around it like a snake. Behind her, suddenly aware, bonded with her, strengthening her with their united wills, the children converged on their teacher. They gathered around her desk, all of them staring. Did they grow larger? Was it she who shrank? They loomed above her, glaring down with savage joy. Agnes Patterson fluttered off her chair and scuttled away between their feet, screaming for help in a voice too shrill for human ears to hear. The children, shrieking their triumph, raced after her, chivying her from corner to corner, striking at her as she dove past them. Help came at last, brought by the pandemonium in the room. Mr. Morgan from across the hall. What's going on here?
It's our bat! Corina shouted. Our nature study bat! It got away!
Yes, yes, the children chorused. We're trying to catch it and put it back in the cage. Where's Miss Patterson? She should have told me she was stepping out so I could cover her. Never mind. He pulled off his jacket and in one deft swoop captured the hysterically chittering creature and stuffed it into the cage. He closed its door and glanced at his watch. It's nearly time for dismissal. You kids sit quiet. I'll be keeping an eye on you from my room. They took their places and sat until the bell rang. They said nothing aloud, but gleeful eyes met, and giggles were muffled behind their hands as they gathered their things and left silently, in impeccable order, attracting no attention to themselves in their unsupervised classroom. Corina waited until the others had gone. She came then and stood in front of the cage. The captive shrank still farther back, but there was no move to harm her.
Goodbye, Miss Patterson,
Corina whispered.
Have a nice vacation.
She tiptoed out and closed the door behind her. And October begins, I hope, on a good note, thanks to the generosity of all of these kind people, particularly Break System BSE. Let's have a spooktacular October season.